take your seats. We are about to get started. We are going to begin with a short video outlining computer science education initiatives in Arkansas.
As technology continues to advance, so should our children's education. That's why in 2015, the Arkansas Computer Science Initiative was created. An initiative to provide better access to a variety of computer science-related resources, and ultimately, to use their skills and creativity to make a difference in the world. And it's all happening right here in Arkansas. Because of this initiative, more and more schools have added coding, cybersecurity, networking, robotics, and game design into their curriculum. And more students are getting the real-world experience and training they need to succeed.
The Arkansas Computer Science Initiative prepared me for my eventual career path by giving me the opportunity to meet with other people that are currently in the industry. Because I had my first internship through this initiative, I am now almost at 2 years of interning with JB Hunt while still going through college, and it's because I had a little bit of experience and knowledge of technology, and that passion is the reason why I am where I am today.
Since the initiative's launch, Arkansas has become a national leader in computer science and computing education, with many states following our lead.
Inside the state of Arkansas, you all have done something fascinating, which is to mandate computer science in your classrooms, and you've seen incredible numbers of students go up in coding, especially with women, especially with minorities. Why did you all think that was so important?
Whenever you look nationally, only 1 out of 10 high schools in America offer and teach computer coding. We mandated at every high school. We could produce 6,000 students a year into our economy that know how to write software.
The study of computer science and related computing areas opens more economic opportunity for more people than almost any other area of study. And this skill set is in demand, not only in the tech sector, but in banking, entertainment, medicine, and virtually every area. So whether your child wants to be a farmer, doctor, teacher, or entrepreneur, they will greatly benefit from the creativity and problem-solving skills that are the essence of creating computer software. And no matter the state of our economy, computer science-related jobs will remain and continue to thrive.
The computer science skills that I gained in Arkansas really allowed me to work around the world. Even now, as a college recruiter for my company, only a few candidates have high school computer science experience. I would encourage anyone who is interested in this field to really start early and seize every opportunity to grow their knowledge in computer science.
From its pathways to higher education, internships and careers, to its passionate and knowledgeable educators and industry-approved curriculum, the Arkansas Computer Science Initiative continues to transform students' lives, both in and outside school walls. And it's never been easier to join in the fun. Join the future and enroll your child in these fun and innovative courses and support the Arkansas Computer Science Initiative today.
And now, National Governors Association Executive Director, Bill Mcbride.
Thank you. And we're pleased to join all of you here today for the launch of Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson's initiative as the National Governor Association's chairman, K-12 computer science education. Now, as some of you know, each year the NGA chairman selects an initiative that can make a difference across all states and territories, showing the power of NGA to convene governors from both parties to identify and develop best practices that make a difference in the lives of their constituents. Past NGA chairs initiatives have dealt with infrastructure, workforce development, cybersecurity, energy, technology, healthcare, and many more. Our current chairman, Governor Hutchinson, has chosen to focus on K-12 computer science education over the next year. He has achieved great success at home in Arkansas, providing the computer science literacy needed for jobs in every career and preparing young people for jobs in the burgeoning computer science field. Of course, governors are problem solvers and solution drivers on a range of issues. And Governor Hutchinson is taking on this initiative as he and other governors work to provide for public health and economic recovery as we pass through the pandemic. So it's my pleasure to introduce Governor Hutchinson to discuss his NGA Chair's initiative and how computer science education can help economic recovery and provide for good jobs in every state and territory in the future. So let's give a warm welcome to NGA's Chair, Governor Asa Hutchinson.
Thank you, Bill, and thank everybody for joining me today to announce and to go through some of the aspects of this initiative. Bill Mcbride is doing a great job as Executive Director of the NGA. We're really accomplishing more than imaginable, even coming out of a pandemic. My background, as many of you know, I served as United States Attorney during the Reagan administration. I was the youngest in the nation at that time. I served in the United States Congress. I was in the Bush administration as head of the DEA, and then after 9/11, I went over to Homeland Security as Undersecretary. And in all of those positions, I sought out bipartisan solutions, and I worked with those across the aisle to accomplish good things for my constituents and for America and to accomplish our responsibilities. And that is very important as governor, and that's really the role of the National Governors Association, and that is to bring people together to see if we can't find common solutions, ones that we can agree upon and work together to accomplish. And that's why I love the NGA, and I'm honored to be chairman through this year. The NGA, of course, started under President Teddy Roosevelt. He was a former governor, and he had an initiative that was important to him, which is conservation. And so he brought the governors together in 1908 to see how the governors could support a conservation effort in a bipartisan way. And I think as a tradition, we go through different governors who's been chair of the NGA, different initiatives, and it's really following a great example for over 100 years. And Governor Phil Murphy is my vice chair. We rotate. I'm a Republican. He'll be coming in as a Democrat whenever I leave my term as chair. And it's a delight to work with him, but all across the aisle in terms of an initiative that is not partisan. It is bipartisan, and that's generally the case with any aspect of education. And so my initiative, as Bill mentioned, is K through 12 computer science education. It is an initiative that in my judgment is urgent, and it is very necessary. It is urgent and necessary to meet the insatiable desire of young people and their thirst of learning, and it is also amazingly important to meet the demands of industry. And for those reasons, I'm here today investing my time in an initiative that was important and is important for Arkansas, but it's really important across the board for our country. And so today I wanted to announce some specifics as to what we can accomplish as a nation and the importance of governors in leading this important national security goal that we have. First, let me give you some background as to how this started. You saw the video, but it was really my experience in Homeland Security, and that was one of the reasons I gave some of that background. Whenever I was charged with responsibility for protecting our country from the next terrorist attack, as Undersecretary, I knew that we had our men and women in the military taking the fight to the enemy. But I also learned the value of the technologist, of the computer science geek that might be in the National Targeting Center reviewing data and determining where the risks were to our country. It was data analysis that helped accomplish our goals as a nation after 9/11 in a way that's consistent with our love of freedom as well. And so it was that background, and then fast forward, I had the opportunity to run for governor, made that decision in 2014, and during that summer, my granddaughter that you saw in the video, she was the one beside me when I signed the bill. She was 11 at the time, and she came to me and said, "Papa, I've made made a mobile campaign app that you can download and people can volunteer, people can contribute to your campaign. That was a summer project that she and her dad had. And I said, if my 11-year-old granddaughter Ella Beth can do this, this is really something to be good for everybody in Arkansas. And so I think I'm the only candidate ever that would spend $1 million in campaign ads saying we need to put coding, computer coding in every high school. And people rolled their eyes and said, you expect to get elected governor on this platform? And we did. It was specific, people understood it, and they understood the future. And so when I got elected, I had momentum, and we implemented this in 2015 with a law that was passed in which Arkansas was the first state to actually mandate computer science to be offered, offered, in every high school in Arkansas. And so you fast forward, that was 7 years ago. I've been governor 7 years, and during that time, we've made significant progress. Arkansas has been recognized by advocacy groups such as Code.org as leading the way in the Learn to Code movement. In fact, Arkansas was recognized last year as having the largest share of high schools that teach computer science as compared to every other state in the nation. And the Brookings Institution recently, and its extraordinary long profile on what we've done in Arkansas in great detail, they recently published a report studying Arkansas's role and started the report by saying that while Arkansas is not typically known for technological advancement, we have seen a rapid and inclusive expansion of computer science education in the state. And so that recognition means a lot to me when they talk about rapid and inclusive. Bothers me a little bit about not known for technological advancement when we've got some of the most technologically advanced companies in Arkansas. But I recommend that to you, that report from the Brookings Institution. My efforts, though, for this initiative, it's important to note, started before the pandemic. But the education challenges that we faced during the pandemic and what people saw as workarounds in education and in healthcare and in work by working virtually or doing telemedicine, people saw and visualized what computer science leads to and how they can solve problems in our society. And so today, coming out of the pandemic, through the pandemic, the need has never been greater to emphasize computer science education and take advantage of this unique moment in history when students see it, understand it, and value it. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, between now and 2029, computer science and technology jobs will grow by 11%. And a computer science major can earn up to 40% more than the average college graduate. This speaks volumes to the young people. Right now, there are over 410,000 open computing jobs nationwide. And so who will meet this need? And this is really a critical question for our nation to address. Will it be American students who learn to code? Or will industry be required to go overseas to find the talent that we need for the work that needs to be done here in the United States of America for our technology future? Right now, computer science courses are mandatory for students in 44 countries, but only 47% of high schools in the U.S. even offer the course. Now, I'll note, because it was a little dated, that video that you saw said that 1 out of 10, I said that when I was on Morning Joe, 1 out of 10 high schools offer computer science in the United States. And that shows the progress that's been made over the last 6 or 7 years, going from 10% to 47%, but it also shows how much more that has to be done for us to be globally competitive. Only 3 states requires all students to take a computer science class before they graduate from high school. 3, and Arkansas is one of them. And so the goal of this initiative is to make sure that U.S. students can meet the needs of industry and we don't have to rely upon skilled workers from overseas, or the other option is offshoring technology jobs. And those are not good options for America's future. As we know, in the United States, the majority of H-1B visas are computer science jobs. Those are the skilled workers that we're bringing in, limited number, but they're filled very, very quickly. And there are only 3 paths that we can take in the future. We can just simply fall behind the world in technology and innovation. Secondly, we can rely upon overseas talent, as I've mentioned, and try to bring them in. Or we can go to offshoring. None of those are good options. The option that I advocate is that we produce the talent right here in the United States of America. But it takes the governors to be engaged in this. It takes national leadership, and it takes a new direction in education. There's another byproduct of computer science courses, and that is that students not only learn technical information, but they learn how to operate in today's workforce. Students increase their problem-solving skills, and they learn to do project-based learning. And these are the skills in today's workforce. That's what employers are looking for. It should also be noted that students who take advanced placement computer science scored higher on AP Calculus. Elementary students who study computer science basics outperform their peers in reading and writing. The conclusion is that computer science or coding is now a foundational part of education. Recently, I was in Denver and led a governor's conference sponsored by the NGA on computer science education. And so it's important that you hear from other governors as well. While I talk a lot about what we have done in Arkansas, there's many other governors, Democrat and Republican, that have done an extraordinary job in investing in computer science in their state and leading the initiative there. And so you'll hear from some of those in this videotape, and after we do this and hear from some of the other governors, I'm going to come back and talk a little bit more about some of the priorities that we made in Arkansas and some of the key goals that I have in this initiative for the future.
It is true that every industry in the nation right now is being influenced by computer science. We need more engineers. We need more coders.
Computer science education is critically important.
It is key to develop a computer science curriculum in Puerto Rico.
Arizona has had a focus on this. I want to give special credit to Governor Asa Hutchinson for leading on this when he came into office along with me in 2014. And we've followed Asa's lead. We've put out standards for our schools to have. We're going to have investment that we continually put in to computer science. And we want to make sure it's available in every high school in our state.
The states that are going to win are going to be the states that have a highly educated, trained workforce in computer science, and it's so incredibly important. It has to start earlier in elementary, middle school, and high school, and then in higher ed.
And when you think about the ability for kids to learn this new digital environment, there is nothing that can quite be as transformational as digital education.
I'm fortunate to have a young son who got a computer science degree at the collegiate level and is gainfully employed, and that's what we want for all of our children and young people.
We have great programs and focused on just bringing people up for the jobs of the 21st century.
We know that these skills are going to be critical for our young people and for our career-minded adults into the future.
We believe that this will have a huge impact in our state moving forward and make sure that our students are prepared for the jobs of the future.
I know they can't hear you, but give those governors a round of I'll pass that along to them. But let me come back to the Arkansas journey, because I do believe there's some important principles that we can gather from how we did it in Arkansas that applies nationwide in the efforts of our governors in other states. So I mentioned that in 2015, when we started this initiative, computer science was required to be offered in every high school. We also integrated the computer science into our lower grades, the K through 8 curriculum, and we had to retrain our teachers, and then we had to, part of retraining our teachers, we offered them a bonus of $10,000 over 5 years if they became certified teachers and taught in the classroom. And while it was required to be offered, we didn't require students at that time to take the course. And so there was a marketing responsibility that I had. I traveled to over 80 high schools, holding assemblies across the state of Arkansas, promoting computer science, encouraging rural schools, urban schools to have students to look at computer science as part of their curriculum. The message I had for them was that if you learn to code and you have access to high-speed broadband internet, then you can run the world from your front porch in rural Arkansas. And that might not have resonated at the moment, but coming through the pandemic, and they saw their parents maybe work remotely, or they learned of others that worked remotely, they understood that principle, that you could work for a company in Austin or San Jose or Charlotte or across the globe if you have those skills and we have that internet access. The results of that combined effort is that we went from 1,100 students in 2015 that took computer science to over 10,000 today in the state of Arkansas. We increased the number of our certified teachers from fewer than 20 at the beginning to close to 600 now across Arkansas that are certified to teach computer science. One simple example is small town in northeast Arkansas, Manila. They came down to the governor's residence. We had an academic presentation, and I met their computer science teacher. And I asked the computer science teacher, how did you get involved in computer science? She said, I was a French teacher, and I heard that this was important for the governor of Arkansas, so I said, surely coding is not any different than any other language. So she became certified and trained as a computer science teacher. She's been doing it for over 6 years now. Her graduates are going on to college and majoring in computer science. That is the dedication of teachers, because they saw the need and they responded to that need. Since 2016, approximately half of the 30,000 K-12 educators in Arkansas have received some form of training in computer science. We also focused on equity, knowing that there was a gap, and we did not want that gap to continue in terms of digital learning, in terms of computer science. And so the largest percent increase in enrollment in computer science in Arkansas has been among girls and minorities. Now, the rural divide should not be understated in terms of the challenge that it brought to us. That digital divide in our rural communities in Arkansas is still a rural state. Made it challenging in terms of giving the high-speed broadband access, to be able to recruit the teachers that we need, and we've had to work hard to overcome that, because we wanted to make sure that that student in Gravette, Arkansas, population 2,000, has the same access to computer science as someone in Little Rock or in Fayetteville or in Bentonville. To accomplish the access, we've also invested into high-speed broadband. We're taking American Rescue dollars, as many states are, trying to make sure that when that student goes home from the school where they have the highest level of broadband and best speeds, they go home, they can continue that study, and the parents can continue that access, and they can dream of the day that they might be able to work remotely if needed, and it works out. There were 5 keys that I wanted to leave with you today, just in our experience, and I'll cover these quickly. First of all, we could have done much of this by executive order or simply our Commissioner of Education. I chose to go to the legislature, our General Assembly, and ask for a law to be passed that mandated computer science. Most recently, we made it a graduation requirement. The legislature responded, they said yes, and the legislative support has been a critical element of being able to accomplish our mission. I also asked them for $5 million at the beginning in 2015 to devote toward this initiative. I've been in politics long enough to know that when you announce an initiative, the first question for the media is, how much money are you putting behind it? And if you don't put money behind it, it doesn't have the same level of credibility and strength. And so we put $5 million every 2 years, and that has been increased most recently to $7 million. And so it's not just legislative support, but it is dedicated funding stream to help that computer science initiative that has been critical. It has been important for us to have a state office and position within the Department of Education. So we have the Office of Computer Science Education. We have a director, we have a staff that helps push this out daily throughout Arkansas and lead this effort. Anthony Owen is here, who's our Director of Computer Science, has done an extraordinary job. And then you have to have executive leadership. Now, in my case, it's me. I'm the governor, and I believe in this. It's my initiative, and I'm out there advocating for it every day. I've become a little bit renowned because Anthony would give me each year the number of students taking computer science and the list of all the schools and how many students were in each school. And I saw one school that had 0 students taking computer science, and I knew it was a large school. And so I just called up the superintendent and said, Superintendent, I got his voice message. And I said, this is the governor. And I know the statistics I'm getting have to be wrong because you have such a progressive school. But my information is that you have 0 students taking computer science. Would you give me a call back? Well, let me tell you, that superintendent got busy, and they soon had 100 students in the classroom, and they've marched on. But it takes that kind of leadership. We can have the Commissioner of Education doing it, or someone in the executive branch really has to own the initiative. And finally, it's about the partnership with the private sector. We can't do it without our industry partners. Many of them are represented in this room, and thank you for this. But they have to guide the instruction. They have to make sure it's broad-based, that it's not just coding, but it is robotics, that it is things that they need in their industry. It could be access to cybersecurity or introductions to blockchain. These are the kind of information flow that we have from industry that is needed in our computer science programs. And so that's what we did, and let me wind up by talking about specific goals that I have over the course of the next year as chairman of the NGA and in furtherance of this initiative. The first specific goal is to increase the number of high schools in the United States that offer computer science. As you've heard, right now it's 47%. Let's kick that number up. Let's compete globally, and let's increase the access of our students to computer science education. Secondly, I'd like to see the number of governors engaged with the Governor's Partnership of Computer Science. I co-chair this with Governor Inslee of Washington State. It's the governors all binding together to support computer science education. Right now we have 15 members. We want to see that increased. Third, we want to expand policy support for computer science. Right now, 23 states have policies in place to give all high school students access to at least one computer science course. We want to be able to increase that policy support and the initiatives of the different states. We want to increase the number of states that actually provide dollars and financial support for computer science education. I talked about how important it is. We've been able to use those funds that we've invested for incentivizing teachers, which has been really important, providing professional development. But the fun part of it is the rewards to the students. And so if you have a computer science student that is taking advanced placement test in computer science, they score a 5, they get college credit. But we give them $1,000 if you score a 5. That's real money to them. If you score a 4, you get $750. If you score a 3, you still get college credit and you get $500. And so those kind of rewards are important to students. It encourages and recognizes the importance of it. And it's made a difference. We have our competitions, and we give pretty good awards to the financial awards to the schools and to the students who participate and who win. We want to, there's only 20 states that have dedicated funding sources for computer science. We want that to grow. We want to expand the number of states from 3 that require it for graduation to a greater number. We think that is important for our future. And then finally, we have to keep our focus on increasing diversity in computer science education, to increase the emphasis on girls who code and minorities, because coding will help shape our future, and everybody has to be engaged in shaping that future for all. We're going to do this by messaging, just like today. We're going to do it by drawing national attention to it. We're also going to have regional conferences in which we're going to be able to showcase what other governors are doing, draw attention to it, and try to engage other states to a greater level. We're going to emphasize this in our winter meeting that will be coming up here in Washington, D.C. in February. And so those are initiatives that we can do, and we can measure that success. I'll end with a story of, I said my granddaughter. Well, I have a grandson, Asa the Fourth is his name. He's 6'7", and he plays basketball. And he saw my initiative that I always talked about in high school, and he said, "Papa, why are you always talking about computer coding?" And I explained to him the reasons, and he said, "I'm just going to stick with basketball." So he graduates, and he gets a basketball scholarship, and he goes to play at a great school in Missouri, Drury University. And I hear from him, and he says, "Papa, I want you to know I changed my major." And he started out in business, and he got into game design, and now he's going to be graduating with honors in with a degree in computer science. And so, you know, while it didn't take from high school, the emphasis and the exposure of that really made a difference for him at a later time in life. And so this is an important issue for our governors. It is an important national issue, and your presence here conveys that. And so we're going to engage in it. I know we can make a difference. It'll make a difference for our young people, but also for the security of the United States of America. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Governor, for those great remarks. And you know, as I was listening to that, I was thinking this is a legacy issue for you. You've been working on this for 6 or 7 years, but I think you're going to see the payoff for this in many years to come. I mean, for these kids that started in elementary school, it's going to be long past the time that you're governor next year that you're going to start seeing really, you know, this continue on and on. I think it's going to be a great program. But I was also wanted to ask you something before we open up the question to the audience. When you started this, and as this has continued through, what did the parents think of this? What was their response to this?
Well, you got a picture of life in 2015. It was a challenge with parents, you know, some, not all, but, you know, it wasn't their generation. They didn't follow this. They didn't understand the importance of it. But it was also educators. You had to bring them along. And so there was some hesitancy there. But as the students increased their demand and interest in it and said, yes, yes, we want this, teachers always respond and educators respond. If they don't respond because the governor says it's important, they will respond because the students say they want that. And eventually, I mean, it got momentum, and parents embraced it. They understand that as well as the educators. And I want everybody to know, I love art education. I believe in history. I believe in all the social sciences. You don't diminish those things, but the computer science aspect is foundational, and so it's got to be a part of everything there that the students should be exposed to.
It's also a great economic tool for the state. Once again, going back to this long range, I mean, and I think we'll see results from that in the future as this carries on.
Absolutely, and you mentioned at the beginning a legacy issue. It's a legacy issue, you know, that students take it and they will have careers. But in terms of the economy, you know, I've set a goal of Arkansas being a micro hub of technology companies. We've been able to recruit some startup technology companies, some second stage technology companies, and they see the talent stream that's coming through. And of course, we have some incredible global enterprises in Arkansas that need their technology companies. They need that talent, and so it's also important for their continued growth.
And I was also struck, and it's great that you really understand the equity component of this and the benefits that that's going to pay in the long term too, and including so many people in this initiative. So that is also great. But then we're going to open it up for questions. If anyone has a question, we have mics around the room. We have a question back there, or if you want to stand up, and I have a mic coming to you, if you can tell us who you are and what your question is.
Yes, thank you. My name is Jamal Abdulalim. I serve as education editor at The Conversation, which is a website for university scholars to share their knowledge and expertise with the general public. Governor, I was particularly interested in the story about your grandson. Did you say great-grandson or grandson? Grandson, because literally just today we submitted a proposal to use the game of basketball to teach important concepts from data analytics. As you know, a lot of players these days are using data analytics as part of becoming better basketball players, so that's particularly interesting. I have two questions. One is, I'm wondering if you have university researchers who are looking at various aspects of your initiative, just to make sure that it is as effective as you believe it to be. Things like the incentives for getting certain scores on AP exams. You know, sometimes things sound like they make sense, but then when researchers look at it, they see that the effect wasn't quite as big as maybe people had hoped for. The other question is, you mentioned the role of the private sector, and a lot of people would agree that yes, it is important to involve the private sector, but they also worry about the private sector having too much influence over education. So I'm wondering if you can speak to the balance that has to be struck between education and business as a partner to advance initiatives in computer science education. Thank you.
Great questions, and on the first part on the university research, I'm not aware of that, but we would invite that, and so I hope that can be done. Again, I think the Brookings report that they most recently did that I cited has some really good information there. And if you look at, you know, the money we put in incentives, you know, there's a balance of, does this incentivize a teacher to do it that wouldn't have done it otherwise, or is this simply a reward for a teacher who takes that step and a retention bonus so we don't leave them to the private sector? And so it's a combination of those as the rationale for it, but we would love to have that kind of research and data. We always learn from that. In terms of the balance with the private sector, there could be a point that you have them so engaged that they tip the balance, that it maybe is too much interference, but we're so far from that. For example, you know, I engaged the private sector with a task force that was charged with helping to set up our goals, what we need to do in computer science education. They set the broad parameters, our educators implemented that. And then the biggest gap is, like I mentioned, the teacher that's trained been certified for teaching computer science, but there's so many in industry that would help encourage, come into the classroom, would tell real life stories. That would be such a great tool for the students to hear from the industry side. And that's the hardest part to connect. Because people in the technology business, they're busy, they're doing their work, they're doing what their mission is. We got to get them connected more on the education side, just to mentor, to help the teacher showcase the opportunities for the young people. But thank you for the question, and I think it's a balance that we need to continue to strive for.
Good afternoon, Governor. Thank you for your time, your leadership on this topic. My name is Rob Russell. I lead a small business unit at Thomson Reuters focused on mitigating fraud in public programs. And I appreciated your point about data analytics in the context of national security. Computer science and data analytics is also really important in delivery of citizen services, in program integrity. And so one of the things I'm curious about is if you or other governors engaged in supporting this initiative are looking at ways to get students engaged in providing internships within public programs, within government agencies, to deliver lend their IT skills in an area that's going to be really important in the future. Thank you.
Great point, and we're tiptoeing into that area. We in Arkansas, for example, we have a very strong government internship program. It's broad-based, and I think it includes our information systems department, but we can do a lot more there, and it would expose, particularly in the data analytics side, so important teaching tool. And one thing I didn't mention, because here again, coming from a law enforcement background and homeland security, I understand ethical issues in the collection and analysis of data. And to me, that's another aspect of the breadth of education that we need to participate in, and that's really revolves around data analytics and privacy issues as well. So it's very broad, where we start with coding, but we've got to expose them to many different aspects and see what path it takes that young student. But I hope that, I'm glad you raised that, and I will mention that to other governors, and hopefully that can be something that other states can expand on.
Thank you, Governor. This is Ryan Burns from a little mom and pop retailer out of your home state, Walmart, and a small e-commerce startup, you could say, as well. We're trying to build out that capability. So first off, just want to thank you for your leadership on these issues. As we do grow out our tech presence, it is a critical job function that we're trying to hire for, and the talent is challenging to find. So just curious, as you think about, we've succeeded a lot in our home state in Arkansas on this front. Barriers to other states as you're working with other governors that are coming up that you're seeing maybe in a few ways that as we try to move this forward nationwide, that we can help contribute to overcoming together to move this project forward. Thank you.
No, that's a great question. And in terms of the obstacles that you can help overcome, I've seen some governors actually present the issue to the legislature and ask for legislative support for mandating computer science to be taught in every school. Well, you run into the debate, we don't want mandates, and so some of the legislatures have actually rejected it. And so where industry and businesses can help is to make sure educators understand, legislators understand the importance of it, and that this is a mandate that does not require additional, for example, courses for them to take to get to graduation. You're substituting computer science for a math credit or a science credit, and so it's a very balanced requirement there, but it's also very necessary. So really, helping with legislators to understand this and the importance of investment, and no one covers them more than the people in this room. That's just one obstacle. There might be others.
We have a question back.
Hi, Ramesh Bhattacharya from Blueberry Opinion. Governor, I need to ask you a question about the federal government, but you did come all the way to Washington, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you, what, if anything, can the federal government do to help these initiatives, and to what extent can the federal government potentially harm the effort that you're pushing today?
It is a very appropriate question, and you know, I do believe that education has historically and effectively been led by governors. And so I do believe that this is uniquely a state responsibility and initiative to help guide education in their state. But there's nothing that beats the bully pulpit of the president or the Secretary of Education. And what I would like to see, and I think it is, to make it a priority in education, for it to be spoken of, to make sure that the grants out there are flexible enough to utilize the traditional flow of money for this emphasis on computer science education. And so it's messaging, it's setting the priorities, and it is making sure the funding stream that comes from the federal government is not an impediment, but it is an addition to what the governors are trying to do. I think that's the role of the federal government, but it's a very important one and can make a difference.
David.
David Plum, representing Western Governors University. Thank you for your focus on this particular issue and your leadership. Computer science at the high school level introduces something to high schoolers that they might not otherwise get. But it's also, I'm curious as to become a workforce issue as well, a skills issue moving forward. Have you seen in Arkansas, as you introduced it at the high school level, that's having an impact on your workforce programs and adult workers who maybe want to retrain and become part of the system as well? And is your initiative going to cover both of those?
The answer is yes and yes. And it is a workforce issue. And so what you see is whenever young people are exposed to the breadth of technologies, whether again it's cybersecurity, robotics, IT function, whatever, they're exposed to it, then they develop their own areas of interest and they're exposed to opportunities. And they're bright enough, they can go online and they can further their education, as you very well know. They can enlist in a whole host of training opportunities and certifications where you can go straight into industry, or you can go into the four-year college or two-year college arena. And where we have the Arkansas Coding Academy that one of our four-year colleges developed and implemented. It's not a four-year program, but it's a certification program emphasizing coding that fits in the workplace. And then we've also made adjustments for those non-traditional students that have been out of the workforce, want to re-enter, could be an ex-offender, a whole host of different avenues. We opened up our scholarships to non-traditional students so that somebody that's been out of the workforce can re-enter it and get some financial support for it. And of course, the coding would be one of the priorities for computer science that would fit within that. So the answer is absolutely, and we want to be able to continue that.
Okay. One last chance.
Somebody raise their hand very back.
Somebody back. Oh, I see.
Hello, my name is Ariana, and I work for a member of Congress in Louisiana. So, I can relate to, your rural broadband communities. Can you kind of just go into more methods that y'all used to mitigate those issues and give more communities access?
Sure, and you're right, we share a lot of commonality in terms of rural areas, and John Bell Edwards, Governor of Louisiana, has really been helpful and good partner in so many different issues, including this. In fact, he hosted a cybersecurity conference down there a couple of years ago that I attended. But what we've done, of course, during the pandemic, we realized, virtual education, and we had regular classes in 2020. But it was that first window when the pandemic came that it was the schools did go home, and so they went virtual for the tail end of that first year, and that's whenever it was just disastrous in terms of our rural families did not have access. They couldn't learn virtually. They'd go to the parking lot of a local store and sit there because they can get internet access. And so we developed hotspots, didn't develop them, but we paid for hotspots that the schools would have that they could send the kids home with. Hotspots were really, really helpful during that time. And then secondly, even before the pandemic, we started Arkansas Rural Connect. It's a grant program that we put real state dollars in that allowed local communities that were underserved with broadband to apply for financial assistance with a provider to really subsidize the state dollars getting the access to broadband in our rural communities. Now, we put some money in there. We're putting American Rescue Plan money in there. I've asked the legislature to put another $250 million before the end of the year. So we're really putting that emphasis because, well, for all the reasons we've recited. And I'm sure Louisiana's looking at similar ones. Y'all are great, really super questions, Bill. Thank you. Great audience.
Well, Governor, we really appreciate you spending the time with us today here, and we look forward to continuing this as we move around the country to spread this message on this initiative you've launched. And I think we've got a lot to accomplish, and we're going to see some results at the end of this. So thank you, everybody, for coming today, and enjoy your weekend.